Yeah, we will talk about managing stakeholder relationships. The managers would like to have good relationship with their stakeholders so that they want to minimize this uncertainty we talked about. The less uncertainty is there, they can plan well, they can organize, they can lead and control. Their control is better. So all this is very important for management to have good relationship with their stakeholders. And what are stakeholders? Any constituents in an organization environment that are affected by that organization decision and actions are stakeholders. For example, here in Sultan Qaboos University, we are the employees are stakeholders, the students are stakeholders, the government is stakeholder. So there anyone who is interested and have can be affected with the organization decisions and actions are stakeholders. Let's look at few stakeholders here. We have employee in the organizations, they are stakeholders. And then we have the unions within the organizations. There are unions, maybe in university there are student unions are there. There in any organization there are labor unions are there who have interest and they can affect the organizations. The shareholders are those who are investors, who buys the shares and becomes investors in the organization. They have direct interest in the organization. If the organization is making money, making profits, they will be enjoying the dividends. Communities, local communities are also interested in the organization, how the organization is performing. They would like to see the organization thrives. Suppliers, of course, they have direct interest in the organizations. They would like to see the organization because organization is their customer. So suppliers are directly involved in with the organizations. The direct stakeholders are there. Media may have interest. Governments are also interested in the organizations because government collect taxes from the organization. They want the organizations thrive. Also, organizations provide employment. So governments are interested that the organizations they do well. Trade and industry associations have interest in organizations. Competitors, the competitors are also stakeholders in a way that they know, they want to see what the organization is doing and what new product they are going to launch. So they are directly looking at it and they will be affected with the decisions of the organization. Similarly, competitors can affect the organization can affect the competitors. So this is both ways. Social and political action groups are there. Nowadays environment is becoming very environmentally, people are becoming conscious and they would like to see that the organization is not, for example, polluting the environment, is environmentally conscious, etc. That's their interest is there. Similarly, customers are interested in the organizations because they want to buy the things. If the organization go out of business, the person has bought some product and the organization go out of business, the customer cannot the product has become faulty or something, cannot go and get the repairs from that organization because the organization is no more exist. So all these are different stakeholders. In SQU, we have students who are stakeholders, employees are stakeholders, faculty members, the technical staff, all are stakeholders. Government is stakeholders. Government want that SQU thrive and do well. Similarly, the parents are stakeholders. The other parents, whose children will go in future, young parents, you can say that they are also interested that Sultan Qaboos University do well, etc. So these are all stakeholders. Now, good stakeholder relationships is needed, can lead to desirable organizational outcomes, can affect organizational performance, and demonstrate doing the right thing. Doing the right thing means achieving our goals, doing the right thing. That's what we started with when we talked about management. We said doing the right thing is effectiveness, which means achieving the goals. So if you have a good relationship, stakeholder relationships, you will be demonstrating doing the right thing, you will be achieving your goals, trying to meet the expectations of your stakeholders, so that you can plan well, you can organize well, and you can control well. Now we come to the internal environment. Define what organizational culture is and explain why it's important. And the internal environment is called organizational culture. This is showing the Googleplex in Google, which has its own culture. What is culture? It is the shared values, principles, traditions, and ways of doing things that influence the way an organization's members act. So it's a kind of a personality of an organization. It's a personality of an organization, we can call it culture. It's the shared values, principles, traditions, and ways of doing things in an organization that makes the culture. You can see that you can feel the culture. SQU has its own culture. When students come from high school, they see a lot of difference when they come to this university. They have to give so many tests, so many quizzes, so many homeworks, which they are not used to. So there is a culture of having so much of assessment components, which the students are not used to. They have to work hard to succeed. So this is a culture over here. Culture is perceived and descriptive and shared. It is perceived, it cannot be it is perceived and descriptive, but it is not something which is written there. It is felt, and it is shared by the common members of the organizations. A new faculty member may come, for example, in SQU, and he will see, he might come from United States. Where I remember we hired one faculty member from United States, and he used to sit down and ask the students to come on board and explain. He used to tell them that this is the chapter, next chapter, you are supposed to come and make presentation to me. And he used to sit and just give his remarks. The students soon became, felt that this gentleman is not right for them, and they started complaining to the dean. Eventually, dean has to say goodbye to that gentleman, that because he was unfit for this culture. He couldn't fit very well in the culture, the student culture as well as the faculty culture. So the organization culture has its own dynamic, its own inertia, and you cannot change the culture easily. Let's look at some of the organizational culture. You can have an organization which goes for attention to details. They would like to say that there is a precision and analysis, and attention is there to the details. Some culture may be outcome orientation in some organization. They want the outcome, how many products sold, for example. They don't want to see that whether it is good or bad, whether the product is good or bad, or whether it is the outcome is has ethically done or not. They just like to see the outcome. Then there are cultures which are people oriented. They give a lot of attention to the people, the employees working in the organization. Then there is a culture of organization which are team orientation, where people work in teams. There are organizations where there is aggressiveness. Managers are competing with each other for resources and so on, and this is aggressiveness there. This is a culture there. Stability. Some organizations are stable, they would like to have a stability, like for example working in ministry, or where there is a stability, people are enjoying maybe having a cup of tea, etc. Nothing is changing. This is a culture there. If someone goes there and he says what is going on, people are just relaxing, having teas and dates and kahwa, etc. And but that is their culture. You cannot change it overnight. If any member goes there and he says that these people are not working, I would like to get them to work, he will soon be fired. So some organizations may be, give a lot of preference to innovation and risk taking, and this defines the organization culture. Now, where does this culture come from? It usually reflects the vision of mission of founders. Founders project an image what the organization should be and what its values are. So the culture is coming from the people who started the organization. They set the agendas, they set the rules, they set the way the work will be done, etc. So these initial people who started the organizations, their culture has reflected in the organization. Maybe in Sultan Qaboos University, if the members were mostly coming from Egypt, and their culture has affected the organization, the way the new faculty members are behaving and working. Organization members create a shared history that binds them into a community and reminds them of who we are. Now, how do employees learn the culture? There are organization stories, narratives, tales of significant events or people, and there you learn the culture. Also, there are corporate rituals. There are repetitive sequence of activities that express and reinforce important organizational values and goals. There are material symbols or artifacts like layout facilities, or how employees are dressed, whether they are dressed with suits and ties, or they are relaxed, casual dresses are there, their sizes of offices, material perks, etc., furnishing. These also is part of the culture. Language, the special acronyms used. I was working in Fauji Fertilizer Company in Pakistan. Fertilizer company was there, and there people used to call the machines have certain names, their equipments have certain names, the personnels have names, like they were called by initial names. So my boss used to be called as TV. His name was Tanveer Waqar. So this is kind of a culture there. Describe how organizational culture affects managers. how does organizational culture affect managers? Its effect on what employees do and how they behave. And it affects on what managers do, how they plan, organize, lead, and control. So you can see that if there is a culture where people are innovative and taking risks and so on, a new person comes here, he has to adjust to that culture, otherwise he has to leave. Similarly, if an innovative person comes in a culture where the risk taking is not there, he might feel unfit for that. So the thing is that the culture is putting its own pressures, own constraints on the employees as well as on the managers, how they plan, organize, lead, and control. Now, strong cultures is in which the key values are deeply held and widely shared. When the culture is strong, you don't have to do it in writing. The people behave accordingly. I was in Canada, and I was coming I was traveling, and I stopped by to one city called Barrie, and where my cousin was working there, and I found him there. It was Jummah prayers, and just I went to Jummah and I saw him there, and we met each other, and he asked me to come. So Jummah, the Friday is not a holiday there, and he said to me, "No, come to my house." I said, "No, you are working, you go to your job, it's okay, I will continue." But no, he said, no, come. So I went with him, and he took him. I was with my family, his family was also there, so we just went there and had some lunch together. And then I asked, you have come over here and you didn't go to your to your workplace. So he said that, I don't have to, but I just told my manager, and I will do the hours which I have with you, I will just make up some time later. I said to him, do they check that whether you have done this hours? He said, no, it's culture there that we do it voluntarily. So we know that we have not used those hours. We will do it in the future. So this is their culture. Here, for example, in SQU, especially in engineering, we have a culture here that every faculty members give you maybe 2 to 3 quizzes, some homeworks, some assignments are there, some projects are there, and mid tests are there. This is a culture. If someone try to be different, then maybe students like it. Perhaps he might not be welcomed by some. His actions might not be welcomed by some of the faculty members. That look, he is trying to change our culture. So this is, when the culture is there, so it affects the people, employees, and also the managers also are affected with that culture. Strong cultures can substitute for formal rules and regulations, create predictability, orderliness, and consistency. I don't say that strong cultures are good or bad. The strong culture can be good or it can be bad also, depending on, if the culture is that it's not innovating but the stability is there and people are just, this is the culture there, then of course it is kind of a bad thing there. Whereas some organizations may have not that great strong culture, but moderate culture is there, not that strong, but it may be good. for the company. Now, how does culture affect what managers do? Before we talk about that, let's see how it is affecting the managers. For instance, you won't find the following values written down, but each comes from a real organization. Look busy even if you are not. And again, I give my personal example. I was working in the fertilizer industry, private industry, a fertilizer industry, and we used to have from 8 to 5 our working hours, but people used to stay there till 6 or 7. And you know, sometimes we were not busy, but our offices were glass offices. People can look from the floor, from the factory floor, that what we are doing. So we have to be look busy. We used to look busy, you know. We used to open our drawings and see if something is we are trying to solve the problems, just to look busy. If you take risks and fail around here, you will pay dearly for it. And this I again give my personal example. When I joined the Sultan Qaboos University, there was one professor who was fired. I came to know that he was fired. His contract was terminated. I asked what has happened. Somebody told me that he took a project, with external project, and that project didn't go well. The company was with whom he was doing the project, they were not happy with the delivery what he made or whatever, and eventually it backfired. So this gave me a very negative feedback that don't take this you know, external projects, try to stay calm and so on. And this kind of things, you know, what happens that if the culture is like that, it can affect the newcomers as well. So if you take risks and fail around here, you will pay dearly for it. This is an unwritten thing there. I'm not saying it is written unwritten thing here, but these kind of stories can also affect the newcomers. Before you make a decision, run it by your boss so that he or she is never surprised. So this is also, even though you have a decision, you are decision making authority, but still you would like to tell your boss. This is a kind of the boss is happy that everything is asked from him. So it's a kind of a culture there. We make our product only as good as the competition forces us to. These are some unwritten things, but this is a culture. What made us successful in the past will make us successful in the future. This is also kind of a culture. People do not like to be innovative, and they are happy with what they are doing. They are successful, etc. Now, company values affects managers' behavior. There are two types. We can clearly see the cultures: ready, aim, fire versus ready, fire, aim. Ready, aim, fire cultures mean that they are doing analysis, and after doing some analysis, perhaps they will take the decision. Or sometimes, you know, there is paralysis with analysis. You cannot take decision, you keep making analysis, and eventually perhaps the time is lost in that. Ready, fire, aim is that you take the action and then you see the consequences, what will happen. So this is a kind of a culture where you want, where people would like to take the risk and then see the consequences of that, and this is the innovative culture, ready, fire, aim. Now, how this culture affects the managerial decisions influenced by culture. In planning, for example, in your plans, the degree of risk that plans should contain, it is affecting the culture, whether plans should be developed by individuals or teams. Some organizations may have a culture that the plans are developed by teams, some by the top boss or few top bosses will make the plan. The degree of environmental scanning in which the management will engage, how much they look at in their analysis, for example, how the economy will be, how much the market will be, etc. All these environmental scanning, new competitors, the degree they look at is also the culture. It will depend on the culture. Organizing, how much autonomy should be designed into employees' jobs. This is, of course, it depends on the culture. Whether tasks should be done by individuals or in teams, the degree to which department managers interact with each other. This is all kind of a culture, and organizing is also depending on that. Leading, the degree to which managers are concerned with increasing employee job satisfaction. Leadership styles, whether it is democratic style of taking decisions or it is autocratic. Whether all disagreements, even constructive ones, are should be eliminated or are they encouraged. So this is culture. Controlling, whether to impose external controls or to allow employees to control their own actions. As I talked about my cousins, you know, the employees are controlling their own actions. There is no external control to look at who has come and who is leaving and how much she spent time in the organization. They are controlling themselves. What criteria should be emphasized in employee performance evaluations? What repercussions will occur from exceeding one's budget? All this, you know, depend on the type of culture and how much control they have to put. I suppose this is the last slide here. So if you have any questions, we can talk about.